What we have for today is more balance tuning. That's indeed, for the 10.2 patch, we have gotten another tiny round of balance tuning pushed on by Blizzard. Now, before we talk about tuning, let's point out that in case you are interested, in case you want to bathe in some nostalgia, Blizzard has already made Mythic Plus dungeons of the next season available for testing on the PTR. What is perhaps slightly interesting is the fact that 6 of them are immediately available, while the 2 oldest ones are still MIA. Everbloom from Warlords and Throne of the Ties, the much anticipated, considering how old and simple it is as a dungeon, they are both missing. So you can go back and test the Legion, BFA, as well as the Mega Dungeon in their Mythic Plus form, but for the older ones, I'm guessing Blizzard has some more tuning they have to do to put them up to Mythic Plus standards. However, let's not talk about that, let's talk about something else, which is the tuning in question. First in line is the one to Resto Druid. The first one is a net neutral change in the sense that Heart of the Wild is being nerfed in damage. So when you turn into a Balanced Druid or a Feral Druid doing Heart of the Wild, you do 20% more damage instead of 30%. Where does the net neutral part come in? It comes in because you now also cast 30% faster as balance and you generate combo points over time as Feral Druid. So the net damage is lowered, but the overall damage with these buffs should put the ability still on a net neutral change. What is instead a flat out buff? However, it's a bittersweet buff because the initial nerf it received is still much larger than this buff is Flourish. This is part of the campaign of Blizzard to nerf the strong raid cooldowns of healers, and the initial change to Flourish was a big nerf. Now it lasts for 6 seconds instead of 8, and now it makes your hots tick 25% faster instead of 100% faster, which is a very big nerf. And the reason why this buff in question is not nearly as much as a match for that nerf, which is the fact that now Flourish has a 60-second cooldown instead of a 90-second cooldown. Yes, it's good, yes, it's more handy, but it's not that you're gonna be using Flourish on the dot every 60 seconds every time. Sometimes you just will be assigned, for example, in a raid to be using your cooldowns, and you have to wait maybe 30 seconds, maybe even a full minute after they came back from the cooldown because you are with other healers and you're planning your cooldowns together, for example. So reducing the cooldown is nice, but still we have to take into account how much the cooldown itself had been nerfed for Resto. That's why overall this nets out to be a kind of a bittersweet type of buff for Resto Druid. Now, where we can find the bitter, but unfortunately we cannot find the sweet part of the nerf, is to Mistweaver. I know, we made the mistake. We got excited about KT. Oh, sorry, we got excited about Mistweaver. The 2-piece set bonus, the very powerful 2-piece set bonus, has been nerfed. Previously, this buff, which increased your healing by 50% on targets with your Renewing Mist on, actually now no longer works with the free jumps of Renewing Mist. Now, you are confused, because of course you would have to be playing Mistweaver to know what any of this means, and of course nobody does play Mistweaver. What this means is that Renewing Mist is a short cooldown hot that you can put on players, and if the hot heals the player when it's at full HP, the hot can jump, can spread to another player. The nerf is that now the 50% healing buff only goes on the initial Renewing Mist target, only on the target you selected and not on the free jumps. So this makes it not nearly as exciting as it was before. It still has quite a decent amount of combo power you can have with the 4-piece set bonus. Now you can use Renewing Mist on the tank, you can then spam a bunch of juiced up Vivifies on the tank, and once the buff fades, 15% of all of that healing is going to be spread around all of the other targets with Renewing Mist, even the Renewing Mists that were spread for free. So still a good change, but not nearly as exciting and as powerful as we previously thought. We then have Blizzard continuing on their track of attempting to buff single target abilities for healers. We have a 40% buff to heal of Holy Priest, as well as a 30 and 40% buff to Unleash Life and to Riptide of Restore Shaman. We then have a series of changes to Rogue, although these ones are harder to put into place, mostly because we already have, a full rework plan for these specs, so we can't quite tell yet how these changes will be affecting the rogues. We can see still some of the interesting plans of Blizzard, like the ones of giving a massive pool of energy to assassination and then put some talents that will drain this energy over time in exchange for more damage. Still quite an interesting angle for the change to assassination. However, for now, we still can't quite decide how good or how bad these changes are for the rogue specs. Where, however, we can decide whether or not these changes are good or bad is for Demonology Warlock. So there is a problem here. This change is not even necessarily a nerf in terms of damage. It's more so another change in terms of playstyle, weakening or worsening the playstyle of Demo. The TLDR, if you're not playing Demo, is that playing with Imp Gang Boss right now, your imps have a 5% chance to turn into Chad imps, and then once you implode the Chad imps, they recycle themselves into normal imps again. The change in 10.2 is that while you have a much higher chance of generating the Imp Gang Boss, now when you implode them, they no longer recycle themselves into another imp. They just do 50% more implosion damage. This has further annoyed Demolocks after looking at the already existing changes to Demo, which are planned to do more or less the same thing that Blizzard is planning to do with Unholy, which is reducing their burst damage, reducing their dependence on augmentation evoker buffs, plus power infusion, plus unused trinkets, etc, etc. However, while this one might not be, as I said, a flat-out nerf to damage, it is still making the rotation as well as the satisfaction of pulling off proper combos of a Demo Warlock worse overall. So it does have sort of ticked off Demolocks just a tiny bit more with this change to Imp Gang Boss. Now, while the change to Imp Gang Boss might not have been a nerf, but just a worse playstyle change, we do have something that is actually just a combo of both, and that is to Arms Warrior. The notoriously meta and overpowered Arms Warrior is receiving a change which is nerfing them in damage, but also making their rotation a bit more clunky. The change is that now the Ignore Pain is no longer going to be benefiting from a series of talents like Anger Management, like Test of Might, and like Tactician. Now, as you read through these tooltips, you notice that they all have one thing in common, which is that they give you something if you spend Rage. So what's the deal? The deal is that right now your Arms Warrior is spending so much Rage and they don't really have anything else to dump it on unless they are free to spam Execute, that they found out Ignore Pain is the best solution to fix this heavy Rage generation. Because Arms Warriors discovered, hold on a second, this is a tank ability, a tank mitigation ability off the global cooldown, which means whenever we are getting close on capping Rage and we have nothing to spend it on, we might as well just dump it on Ignore Pain. Plus, at the very least, we get the benefit of getting more resilient, more tanky, because we get a bunch of Absorb Shield from Ignore Pain, while still benefiting from all of these DPS talents that do something if we consume Rage. This is, of course, could be, looking at this from a positive side, part one of a two set of changes. Blizzard might be intending of giving Arms finally something they can dump some Rage in rather than Execute. Because whenever Arms Warriors don't have Execute, after Heroic Strike had been removed, after Slam has been made into basically something completely irrelevant, they found themselves without too many things worth pressing way too often, which in return makes their their one sole form of dumping rage outside of execute as ignore pain. So while this one right now seems like a massive nerf to the playstyle of arms, we are still, looking at this from the angle that we might get something to, to compensate for this in the arms toolkit in 10.2. So these for now are all of the changes in this next round of tuning released by Blizzard. Some positive ones, some negative ones. We still, of course, have a long way to go before we get the release of the patch, so we have a bunch of time left waiting for the complete version that Blizzard has in mind for all of these specs and their changes. So as we wait along this path in the PTR for more tuning, this is all we have on this Thursday. So we are starting, as usual, our goodbyes by thanking all of the Patreon supporters for the contribution and the help to the growth of the channel, which can, as usual, still be given completely for free. You can like and comment down below, as well as subscribe to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, well, September the 14th, the last day of the supposed heat wave, so for once I'm going to trust meteorologists to have it end by tomorrow.